Zodiac, you know what I'm saying? We about to just react to this Zodiac killer. Apparently they found him through TikToker evidence. Like, hey bro, I just gotta watch it, because how the bro, like, I don't even know. People get more and more interesting every day.
100%
so let's
sure
go.
That Richard Hoffman, your grandpa, was the Zodiac killer.
I'm not 99.9 no more, I'm 100%.
Zodiac, a symbol that now stands for terror.
One of America's most notorious serial killers.
The Zodiac Killer.
Zodiac Killer.
Leaving clues, sending letters directly to the police and news stations. And for nearly 50 years, no one has come close to figuring out who the Zodiac Killer was. Every few years, some new evidence or suspects would appear, but there was never enough evidence to prove it. But this time, seems different. A man named Jay Foy posted a series of TikToks.
My grandpa is the mother Zodiac killer. It looks exactly like my grandpa. Grandpa was the
First off, we got the snitch of the century. Like, I don't know if I was in his position and this was actually my grandpa and this is all turned out real, I wouldn't know how to react. But I don't know if the first thing I would do is go to TikTok. But
Vallejo police officer developed the word
okay.
until wrong.
So I'm going to meet up with him to see how much evidence he has on his grandfather and to see if after 56 years we might finally have the identity of the Zodiac Killer. In order to talk to Jay and understand his evidence, we first had to understand the details of the Zodiac story. So I went to where it all began. This was the exact site of the first murder of David and Betty.
The double homicide that took place out on a county road sometime after 11 o'clock.
Car pulls up on this road. It's a couple, David and Betty. They're just doing what couples do, having a good time. He, I guess, was following them for quite a while. He pulls up beside them, and then he shoots them both. It's terrible. What's insane to me is they have the actual crime scene photos. I don't know how well it will match up. Evidence we got from this, which will be important later, is it was a couple, man and woman. It was a gun used. The ammo was Super X, which is important. And as for the location itself, there's the Zodiac symbol, which just looks like a scope, all over the place. I also found some bullets, which was mildly concerning, but I just ignored that. And then I found a lot more Zodiac symbols. Signed this one, I don't know what it was written with because they could not get that off. And then above, you also have a smiley face, which that's the type of stuff that I like to see. It's a lot better, more positive. This isn't really where the Zodiac name started though, because he didn't write any letters or anything until after the next murder, which was only 3 miles down the road. This is the one where they pulled out on a gravel road. It doesn't look anything like that though. And this is the park right here. It's honestly a really nice park. You can see from the overhead shot, it happened up here and to the left. Man, that kid is screaming so loud. They think the Zodiac Killer killed 37 people, only 5 are confirmed. So a couple pulls in here, Darlene and Mike. Darlene, she was known as, how do I say it?
Let me just say that ratio is so crazy. Like, you know how good of a killer you gotta be, you know what I'm saying, to just
this
37 to 5, yo.
Way. She was with some dude that wasn't her husband. She was also married at the time. Car comes around, he parks like the police, it seems like it's officer, he comes around with a light, attempts to kill both of them. Darlene dies, and then Mike doesn't. He survives, which is kind of important for finding out who the Zodiac Killer is. The guy we're meeting up with later, Jay, he has information on this exact thing from the actual police cases. He's also talked to Mike, the guy that survived, and it's mind-blowing stuff. So this all happened on July 4th, which is also something to take note of. Apparently on this one, he literally straight up called the police and admitted to this one. So around a month later, the Zodiac basically was born, because this was the first letters he sent, and ciphers. He sent them to the San Francisco Chronicle, Vallejo Times, and the Examiner. Literally his message. He lists the brand name of the ammo, Super X. He names how many shots were fired, where they were fired, how the people were positioned, what they were wearing. He basically confirmed that he did it, but in addition to that, he left ciphers and told the news stations to put it in the paper or else he would kill a lot more people. Basically the real life Riddler. And this first cipher was eventually solved by a random couple, and it basically said that the Zodiac believed that all the people he killed would be his slaves in the afterlife. This didn't really help us figure out if the Zodiac Killer was Richard Hoffman, but some details at the next location definitely would.
It's like a lot of y'all niggas spend a lot of time alone, bro. Weirdos.
Like thinking people who he wants to be a slave.
Not saying I don't, but I'm not doing this shit. What the
I don't even think so. I don't know if that was just like I almost feel like he was trolling. Like I don't think he believed that. Yeah, you think if that's like your whole philosophy behind killing people. Well, one, You wouldn't even really be telling people, would you? We have arrived.
No.
Kind of. It's a little downwards.
Napa Police Department. I want to report a murder. A double murder. They're 2 miles north of parking headquarters. They were in a white Volkswagen car. I'm the one that did it.
This is where it happened, just down here. So I think they were laying like right here. Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell. This one was like, if you watch the movie, I don't even want to describe it on YouTube because it's so brutal. Like, it was literally, it is hard to watch. And the guy survived.
Brian made it for 2 reasons some people might regard as intangibles: a strong faith and an equally strong will to live.
I did think I was going to die. From that moment on, one has to have certain goals that you have to set. The first goal, of course, was to live.
Prayers out to that guy. This was the only one he ever did with a knife, which is very odd. It almost seemed like he was just doing stuff, like everything he was doing was to throw people off. The other important thing about this location and to finding out who the Zodiac Killer is this was the first time he was seen in a costume. The costume that the Zodiac wore was described as an executioner's hood with a symbol. He wrote on their car, on the car of the people he killed, his symbol, Vallejo, the date, which was 12/20/68, very close to Christmas. It seemed like he really liked to do stuff around holidays. He sends literally so many ciphers. There's a ton of.
I didn't get enough love at home, so I kill everybody who I think are getting love. Gosh,
over there.
Like that's sometimes what I be thinking, bro. Like I ain't gonna lie. Like if you have a sad backstory, hey, but like. Sometimes these killers just be like on some weirdish. Like his trend was killing around like holiday time. Like that's the only thing I can think of. That's the only thing. I hate holiday time. Ugh.
It was a little bit.
I never had it.
But man, I get so off track easily. I have ADHD.
But that's probably
I'm
bad
really
mindset.
sorry.
But hey,
what was I just saying? I don't know. I'm really interested in like the psychology of why these people were doing it. Like what was going through their mind. It's just like, it doesn't make sense. We were starting to see some patterns emerge that
doesn't make sense.
would be connected to Richard, but there was still a lot more that connected. So we headed to the 4th official murder. So we have driven about an hour, about 2 hours to the next spot. Oh, all right. So first we need to find out where exactly it was, because it's the corner of these 2 streets, but as you notice, there's 4 different corners. It's one of the corners. We don't know which one. Oh, is that literally the one we're on? Because this is 3898. So they know this 100% was him for a lot of reasons. So what happened, cab pulled up here, literally right in front of this house.
San Francisco Police Department.
Yep, there's a fake in a cab.
What is your location?
3390 at Washington.
I believe that was the exact window they saw it out of. I don't know how accurate that is once again. But yeah, literally like that's the view. They would have saw it from right there. I mean, that's pretty close. And then the top part, police drive by him. They drive by him. They see the Zodiac Killer. But you know what description they were looking for? A black dude. Man, they were so close to catching.
They're goofy.
It's like actually frustrating. He took some of the guy's cloth and like that had blood stains on it from the victim. He sent it to the police. The interesting thing was in the car he left gloves, but there were no fingerprints. And later they found out that was because he covered his fingerprints with like a wood cement, which never really lined up with any of the victims, but it does line up with the guy we're gonna talk to later, which is crazy. There's really only one other important murder, but it was never 100% confirmed that it was the Zodiac. This was the murder of Sherry Bates, which would have been basically way before all the other murders in October 1966. People think this is the Zodiac because there was a poetic letter about the murder found carved into a desk where it all happened, which takes us to the suspects. I'm gonna go over these extremely quick just because they've been looked into so much. Now I wanna get to the newest evidence, obviously. If you want me to look more into them later down the line, let me know. Arthur Lee Allen. Apparently Darlene was connected with someone with the nickname Lee, which was his middle name. Weirdest thing, he was at the lake the day of the murder and had knives covered in blood, but he claimed it was to kill a chicken. That seems like the most basic excuse.
I'm not
the Zodiac killer.
His friend claimed that Arthur told him the entire plan to become the Zodiac in detail before it all happened, which is just, this guy looked like as sus as you can look. Richard Geikowski, his co-worker, sent letters to the police that he believed he was the Zodiac, and then Nancy Solver, which was a dispatcher who received one of the Zodiac killer's calls, thought his voice matched very well.
He said, I want to report a double murder. I shot them with a 9mm Luger.
Ooh.
And I also...
Granny got that rah-rah-rah!
killed those kids last year. And his closing was goodbye.
Earl, his son, wrote a book claiming that he was the Zodiac, which is kind of crazy. He matched the sketch, was also interested in codes and ciphers. Lawrence, earlier in his life, he had gotten into a car accident and had trouble finding...
Just real quick, what if the Zodiac killer is just a collection of people, and it's not even like... What I mean by a collection of people, it's just multiple people like going at it. Cause y'all notice how everybody did something different. You know what I'm saying? Like not everybody did something different. What if it was just different killers, bro? Cause like doing something different every time probably takes an insane amount of time. And if you kill 37 people within a certain time frame, then it's like probably was just different people, bro, because like it's a lot of people. And I know there's Jeffrey Dahmers, I know there's this, that, and the third, but it's like they could not pinpoint shit, y'all. Like
interested in codes and
that's the only thing I could think of.
Earlier in his life, he had gotten into a
say.
car accident and had trouble finding gratification after. His nickname Kane can be seen in one of the ciphers, and Darlene's sister claimed that Kane harassed Darlene in the weeks leading up to her murder. There's probably a good 10 more new suspects that appeared in the 55 years since, but none of them were convicted either. So now it's finally time to meet up with Jay and to see once and for all if Richard Hoffman, his grandfather, could be the Zodiac killer. I was really curious, and we actually asked you this earlier, but how you kind of figured that out and got into this story.
Right, so I have a history in law enforcement. I was a cop for 10 years, and I ended up going to a fallen officer's memorial, and I was thinking to myself, like, why was I the only member of my family who was a police officer? And then as I was walking home from this memorial, I remembered that I had a grandpa that I wasn't close to after a certain age. That was Vallejo Police Department, which we happen to be standing in front of.
Right here.
So I went on Google and typed in Richard Hoffman, Vallejo Police Department. I was going through some of the news articles about him being shot and him getting promoted to detective. I was really happy. And then next thing you know, I see a link that says Zodiac Killer, Richard Hoffman, and I was just shocked. I couldn't stop digging. I stayed up all night. I didn't sleep. On other threads, other websites, Reddit's, Tapatalk, and I was convinced after 13 hours of doing investigation, I was like, it was my grandpa.
Damn. So you put multiple pictures, I'll put them on screen, and it does look shockingly similar to the description.
In regards to Richard wearing glasses, he had an astigma his whole life, and they wouldn't wear glasses because the flashes and the technology wasn't good enough. And you could see him, he's a detective here in Vallejo.
I was working as a patrol officer in the...
When he got promoted, he changed his whole entire look. You could see in all his older photos, he's wearing the glasses. So growing up, what I remember before my father got custody of me, we would spend the holidays at my grandpa's house. He loved the holidays. Halloween, Christmas, Easters, that was my grandpa's thing, which is ironic because a lot of the...
He loved holidays, and then...
Zodiac's killings were around major holidays. All I remember from my...
So it wasn't what I expected. That's
grandpa's
crazy.
him being really authoritarian. Like I'm talking about Germany, and my grandpa was really big into German history. He didn't respect women. He called my grandma girl instead of hey babe, hey wife. Any women in our family he referred to as that girl. Always felt superior to women. Things didn't go his way, getting loud, slamming cabinets.
I know there was a lot with handwriting, with the way he spelt things, with that stuff. So could you go over that a little bit?
Then I noticed a lot of the words that the Zodiac was misspelling were same things my grandpa was misspelling in his actual police reports that are on record. Like leaving the E on words like casings instead of dropping the E.
And you said
they
a double L.
And the double L, so they had the same linguistic errors. Very poetic, like my grandpa's police reports weren't just like...
And just that alone kind of got me sold, y'all. It is hard to replicate an error like that. If you say, all right, for example, say you curl your Y's or curl your G's, because that's what I do. And And I've been asked multiple times why I do that, because it's just, I don't know, it's just habitual for me. It's a habit now. So I feel like it's hard to replicate. It is hard to replicate, errors such as this. He might have them, you know what I'm saying? Oh, and then also what I was trying to say is that it's hard to just try and go and do writing like that isn't like in your daily habits. Like if I go ahead and try to write a Y straight, I would probably stop writing after like 10 times, because it's not in my habit. I haven't been doing that for, a straight Y for years. I've been, you know what I'm saying? Like I've been curling it.
Those police reports weren't just like
if that
police
makes sense.
Reports. It sounded like a poem, and it's in the same tone that the Zodiac would write. Same linguistic errors, very poetic. Like my grandpa's police reports weren't just like police reports. It sounded like a poem, and it's in the same tone that the Zodiac would write his letters. He was really bad at spelling and hated crossword puzzles. So he found a knack for math. Like he loved solving math problems and equations, and that's why he became a woodworker. He has a lot of numbers, and you could correlate that to the ciphers that the Zodiac was doing, because
he became a woodworker, and then he had a wood cement on his hands, y'all, his fingertips. Did y'all remember that?
He was so bad at spelling, he used a different way to speak to us.
And I originally thought these ciphers were more like puzzles, but they were straight up just like really complicated math equations, as you can see right here. And then also we talked about this earlier, talking about the woodworking, how they couldn't find his fingerprints because he covered it with a cement.
Yeah, like a wood cement or a wood adhesive, yeah. Which is really rare.
Yeah.
And my grandpa was a woodworker. Yeah, so someone who's usually handling those type of supplies and substances, they know in their head, and if you're a cop, you know that fingerprints are a big part of a crime scene. Like, can you imagine a serial killer writing the reports for these murders? He was actually on set of the 2007 film, The Zodiac, as a law enforcement consultant pulling up. He was the one saying, oh no, this is where they were parked. So he was still hiding in plain sight, in control, narcissistic, egotistic.
Dang.
My grandpa was
Shout
in the
out
Navy
the homie.
stationed in Nebraska, which where my mother was born. The base he was closed at the time closed down. And then he got stationed here. Sherry Bates was also from Nebraska. Her brother and dad were in the Navy. She ended up dead a month after my grandpa moved back here. At the crime scene of Sherry Bates, they found a Navy-style, military-style footprint. And then under the desk in the library where she died, they found a poem that's exactly like the Zodiac's writings moving forward in the future, and it was initialed RH, which is Richard Hoffman.
Then we got to the most compelling evidence.
And the way he pulled up behind him, you guys watched the movie?
Yeah.
And, he didn't even right behind him. It was like the same way a cop car would park. They split the car for lighting so they could get a visual representation of everyone in the car. 11:50-ish is when Mike says they pulled up here, which is crazy because this is my grandpa's patrol area, and he was on the radio 5 minutes before the murders happened, and he drove through here and said there was no cars.
Yeah, I remember seeing
Mike
that.
was like, we were there at 11:50. Yes, we were already there. Why would he hide that? To his account, he refers
so crazy.
Mike has said Michael was originally in the back of the car, but when I pulled up, he was outside the car. So my question is, he's speaking as if he was there prior to him being there as in a cop position. How did he know that he was in the back of the car that moved, unless he was the shooter?
So he came back around after he killed them. So did Mike how did that go?
No, so Mike didn't recognize the shooter when the shooting was happening because the light blinded them. 3-4 minutes later, Richard pulls up in his unmarked police vehicle in plain clothes, which is another reason that he probably was doing it that night, because he was on plain clothes duty. He didn't render aid, he didn't call an ambulance, he pulled out a piece of chalk to outline Mike's body. Richard admitted to moving the body. He admitted to not doing CPR, moving Mike's body. He admitting to going through Mike's wallet. My grandpa's DNA is all over the scene. So no longer are we saying, oh, that's the Zodiac's DNA. We're saying, oh, that's the cop that arrived first. Of course his DNA is there. He pushed officers off the scene that arrived with him and said, no, I got it. In what right mind is there a possible double murder where you're sending away your backup?
Yeah.
Hey, I got this, guys. Go ahead and look for the car. Why he's changing the scene.
Hey, guys, I got this. I'll set everything up, and I'll even do the paperwork. You guys just go ahead, take the night off, I'm I'm pretty sure any cop in their right mind, oh, are you sure? Okay, you know, like.
But they almost end the movie making it seem like it was Alan.
And the way they tied that together is Alan's middle name was L-E-I-G-H, Lee. So there was a guy who showed up to her house that she just moved into to go help her paint. And her sister said there was a guy there that wasn't invited who was known by law enforcement, and everyone referred to him as Lee. So that's where they got the Arthur tie-in. But I'm like, Richard's middle name was Lee as well. Wow. Yeah, and a lot of it had to do that scene with Darlene and Mike and her painting party. Her circle of friends were into drugs, like psychedelics.
Yo,
and
honestly,
why would Richard claim being at that painting party if there's like a bunch of drugs there? No cop, even Buzz, his partner, no cop is gonna claim being at a drug party, right?
Be like,
so they all try to distance themselves, and they all had their little secrets on the inside, and that's why everyone was hush-hush about it.
And I think the craziest thing, because we talked a cop. Do you think a lot of officers
sorry, that's just crazy,
knew or had suspicions
of Richard? Yeah, I think that they all were, because back then, as we spoke about, it was easier to get away with things. I feel like they did have a good old boys club going on, which is why Buzz Gordon, the officer that arrived with Richard, they ended up getting into a fist fight like a week before the murder of Darlene, and Buzz was on his way out. Vallejo was trying to fire him for sleeping with underage girls.
There were also a couple of officers who were fired over a relationship with a 14-year-old girl.
Dang.
At least one of those officers was questioned about his relationship with Darlene.
And Richard showed up and beat up Buzz. Richard ended up getting handcuffed, and he told Buzz, he's like, I'm gonna get you back. 4 days later, Darlene dies. And Buzz had an open relationship with Darlene. So I think they all had
That is
secrets.
insane.
And if you tell this one little one, then it's gonna expose everybody else's secrets. That's why everyone asked, well, why did he just all of a sudden stop? Well, if you look at the timeline of events, the Zodiac wrote like a final goodbye letter in 1974, which was around the time my grandpa was getting promoted to detective. So now he's in this big chair with this throne in his own cute little office. He changed his look, he grew his mustache out, he divorced my grandma, found a new younger wife. So all these big changes were happening for him, and I think that's where he drew that validation from, was his new chapter, where he didn't need to do those things no more because there was so much more going on. Like, that was it for him.
Do you think...
Let me just say that his obsession, or the way he's thought out everything, is very, very good. I'm not even gonna lie. But like I was saying earlier, he probably was just killing and drilling. Actually, I won't even say that.
That the killing was driven by that narcissism, or do you think it was like some weird, I don't even know what to call it, where it was like the one cipher that was revealed that was like collecting slaves for the afterlife?
I think what drove his murders were control, man to woman. If you notice, most of the men that he assaulted survived. except the cab driver he shot in the back of the head. And that he took it all out on the women that were with those men. So I think what drove him was
what if those were what? So say I think he was saying that he liked younger women. So say he had his eye on those younger women. Did he do it out of hate? Because he's like, oh, I wanted her. You know, what do y'all think, bro? That's just a thought.
Feeling in control of those young, vulnerable women.
Why do you think Richard has ever been like really looked into?
I think a lot of people dismiss it because the timeline that he created was skewed. They said he was at the hospital and announced Darlene's death at 12:40. And I think that instantly says there's no way he could have made the phone call from the payphone across from Vallejo Police Department when the phone call came in. There's two, but I think they're forgetting that Richard made that timeline. Richard wrote that report.
Yeah, that makes everything so much harder.
But as days went on, I have found the craziest evidence that I can't even believe that it's a connection. And I'll give you a little hint. It has to do with the one time that he wore a costume. A couple of the victims that I'm talking to, or the victims that passed away, some of their families have reached out to me and they're sharing decades of information that they have stocked up in their files, digging into my grandpa's military record and all that stuff. So I got a couple sources, and then even people who were reporters here in Solano County back in the 70s, they lost their jobs, but they have a whole storage unit with evidence pointing towards Richard. And when I tell you, it's so compelling that I want everyone to feel what I'm feeling. Like, without a shadow of a doubt, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It was Richard Hoffman. And I know that. With everything that I already gathered and the dots I've already connected, I'm not 99.9 no more, I'm 100%.
Wow.
Yeah, we're gonna solve it.
Oh, yeah.
This is gonna be solved. And how many people are left without closure that have been looking for it for years? And they're on their way out, you know what I mean? Some of these people are 70 years old, 75. If this could be their final check in the box where they're like, thank you for what you did, I did.
It's such a good goal. Thank you again for coming to talk about this. Yeah, massive stuff planned. Go follow him. JFoy on everything, I guess?
JFoy_3.0, yep.
Well, after checking the facts, everything he said made sense. He had actual evidence for a lot of it, and it was very compelling. I don't think everything we talked about is 100% enough to prove it, but I kind of do think that he has some stuff that might be. And I personally think that his grandfather might be the Zodiac killer. So yeah, there's a solid chance I do a part 2 on this. After we got all that up.
You better do a part 2 with your little goof at. Like, what be wrong with this? You better do a part 2, bro. You gonna leave all of us on a cliffhanger?
From Jay.
You got that right.
What do you guys think? Do you think Richard Hoffman is the Zodiac killer? I am literally gonna make more and more bangers as time goes on, so subscribe. Every week, I pay the most viewed clip on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, $250. So clip this video or any of my videos, post it on one of those platforms, and you might win $250. That's all for now. What mystery, what adventure, what quest should we go on next?
Trying to find the Zodiac killer part 2. That's exactly what you should do, my boy. But anyway, with all this compelling evidence and with everything, and the reason why I'm reacting to this is because I've been interested in the Zodiac killer. He's one of the notorious killers that have never been found, but been dropping bodies, you feel me? So I was just like, all right, cool, we just gonna head into it, you know what I'm saying? Go check out JFoy on TikTok. With all this yapping, you know what I'm saying? Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all later.